Ladies and gentlemen, grab your seats, because Sophie Cunningham just blew the lid off something the Indiana Fever have been trying to keep under wraps all season. What she revealed on her podcast wasn't just casual commentary. It was an accidental confession that exposed one of the most uncomfortable truths in the WNBA right now. Sophie didn't name names with malice. She didn't even sound like she was trying to stir drama. But with just a few sentences, she confirmed what fans had whispered about for months, that the real tension inside the Fever locker room wasn't between players. It was between their brightest star and their head coach. Sophie Cunningham casually revealed that Caitlin Clark wasn't just another rookie following orders. She had real influence, a say in the offensive system itself. And that changes everything. Think about it. A first-year player, barely halfway into her rookie campaign, having enough power to reshape her coach's playbook. It's almost unheard of. And it confirms that behind the smiles, the team huddles, and the press conferences, there was chaos. A silent tug-of-war for control of the team's identity. Cunningham's comments painted a picture of a franchise split in two directions. On one side, the coaching staff led by Stephanie White, clinging to their structured, system-driven basketball philosophy. On the other, Caitlin Clark, a generational phenom with her own vision of how the game should be played. What Cunningham said wasn't gossip. It was confirmation that Clark had to fight to make the Fever offense fit her game. And in that one revelation, she exposed that the so-called team chemistry Indiana claimed to have was nothing more than a thinly veiled illusion. This wasn't about a disagreement over play calls. This was a war of basketball ideologies. And Cunningham's words were the first undeniable proof that the conflict wasn't just rumor. It was real, and it had been brewing all along. What Sophie Cunningham revealed next took things from surprising to downright shocking, because she didn't just say Caitlin Clark influenced the Fever's offense. She implied Clark controlled it. Let that sink in. A rookie, barely a few months into her professional career, reportedly had the green light to alter her team's system. Not just tweak it, reshape it. And that's not something you see in a league built on hierarchy, seniority, and strict coaching systems. But according to Cunningham, Clark wasn't playing by those old rules. She was rewriting them. Sophie's exact words carried weight. Those types of athletes get to come into an organization, they have the green light, and they can do whatever they want. And then she dropped the kicker, that Caitlin had to make decisions within the system herself. Translation: this wasn't Stephanie White's team anymore. This was Caitlin Clark's system wearing Indiana Fever colors. That one statement shattered the entire public narrative the Fever had been selling all season. Fans were told this was a smooth transition, that Clark had adapted beautifully to her new coach's style. But behind the curtain, it was a different story. There was friction. There was pushback. Clark wasn't just adjusting. She was fighting for her basketball identity. And that kind of internal battle doesn't stay hidden forever. Inside that locker room, there was a clear power dynamic shift. The veteran players and coaching staff had to grapple with a 22-year-old who wasn't content to learn the ropes. Caitlin Clark was there to run the show. Cunningham's revelation turned a season-long mystery into a storyline of defiance and dominance. A rookie refusing to be molded into something she wasn't. And that explains why the Fever's offense often looked like two teams in one. Half of it trying to execute White's structured sets, the other half playing at Clark's breakneck tempo. Cunningham's slip confirmed what no one in Indiana dared to admit publicly. Caitlin Clark was already the architect and the engine. And for a coach trying to assert authority, that's a nightmare waiting to happen. Here's where everything came to a head. Not just a disagreement, but a full-blown basketball culture war inside the Indiana Fever. On one side stood Caitlin Clark, the prodigy whose entire game thrives on freedom, pace, and instinct. On the other stood Stephanie White, the coach rooted in structure, system, and control. What Sophie Cunningham exposed wasn't merely a clash of personalities. It was a philosophical collision between two completely different visions of basketball. Clark's game has always been built around chaos, the beautiful, orchestrated chaos of read and react. At Iowa, she had full control, reading defenses, pushing tempo, deciding every possession's fate. She was the system. Everything flowed through her, like a conductor leading an orchestra by feel, not by sheet music. That's the style that made her a superstar, the very reason fans filled arenas just to watch her improvise brilliance. But Stephanie White brought with her a Connecticut-inspired blueprint built around balance and ball movement, an offense where every player gets touches, the pace slows down, and structure reigns supreme. It's a coach's dream: predictable, controlled, steady. But for Clark, it was a cage. Her instincts were muffled by drawn-up plays that limited her creativity. And that's where the tension exploded. Cunningham's leak showed that neither philosophy could dominate for long. When Clark tried to impose her up-tempo rhythm, the team looked electric. But when White reasserted her structured sets, everything bogged down. The result was inconsistency, confusion, and frustration on both sides. One night, the Fever looked like a playoff team. The next, like a group of players trapped in someone else's system. Fans watching at home saw the symptoms without understanding the disease. Missed passes, broken plays, awkward spacing, all signs of a team split between two conflicting ideologies. And it wasn't just tactical, it was personal. Clark's vision represented modern basketball: speed, spacing, improvisation. White's represented tradition: order, repetition, authority. Two powerful minds, one basketball court. And as the season went on, it became increasingly clear one of them was going to have to give. When Stephanie White left the Connecticut Sun to coach the Indiana Fever, she didn't come alone. She brought baggage, and not the emotional kind. She brought an entire system, a style of play forged around veterans like DeWanna Bonner: slow, structured, deliberate. It was designed for seasoned players, not for a 22-year-old phenom whose game runs on speed, chaos, and vision. But instead of tailoring her system around Caitlin Clark, White tried to copy and paste that same Connecticut blueprint straight into Indiana. What followed was one of the most glaring system mismatches in recent WNBA history, and Sophie Cunningham's comments just confirmed it. This Connecticut experiment, as fans now call it, was doomed from the start. White wanted the Fever to play a half-court motion offense: patient, steady, predictable. Clark, meanwhile, thrives on unpredictability, reading defenses on the fly, attacking early in the shot clock, firing deep threes before a defense can even breathe. It's like asking a race car to idle in traffic. Every possession felt forced. Every set play felt like resistance to what Caitlin is. Cunningham made it clear: Clark didn't fit into White's framework. She fought against it. She didn't want to be just another piece on a board. She wanted to be the one moving the pieces. But White's stubborn attachment to her Connecticut principles left Clark boxed into roles that made no sense, including stretches where she was played at small forward. Small forward. You don't take one of the best playmakers in basketball and turn her into an off-ball spectator. Yet that's exactly what happened. The result? Confusion on the court. Fans wondering why the Fever looked lifeless one quarter and explosive the next. Players unsure of what identity they were supposed to follow. Sophie's revelation exposed that this wasn't a chemistry issue, it was a coaching issue. The Connecticut system was simply incompatible with the Caitlin Clark era. And in hindsight, the whole thing feels like a failed experiment, a rigid philosophy trying to contain something far too dynamic to be contained. Clark wasn't drafted to fit into an old system. She was drafted to become the system. And Sophie Cunningham's words finally made that truth undeniable. If there was one phrase that turned Sophie Cunningham's podcast into a shockwave, it was this: Caitlin Clark had to enforce her power. Not use it, not earn it, enforce it. Those words revealed everything the Fever tried to hide all season. They exposed that being the face of a franchise wasn't enough for Caitlin Clark. She had to fight to actually play like one. Imagine that. The most hyped rookie in years, a player who sold out arenas, carried record-breaking viewership numbers, and revived an entire fan base, having to battle her own coaching staff just to play her game. What Cunningham confirmed is that Clark didn't simply influence the offense. She took it over by force. When White's Connecticut-style sets slowed the game down, Clark reportedly pushed back. When she was moved off the ball, she demanded adjustments. And when the system boxed her into being just another passer or decoy, she pushed harder. This wasn't arrogance, it was survival. Clark's entire basketball DNA is built on creativity and control. To strip that away is to take away what makes her special. And fans saw the frustration boiling over. Clark's body language said it all. The clenched jaw after missed plays, the eye rolls on the bench, the heated halftime exchanges. These weren't signs of immaturity. They were the symptoms of a young star refusing to be restrained. Sophie's phrase, enforcing her power, paints Clark as a player who realized early that she couldn't just fit in. She had to reshape the environment around her. Inside the locker room, that created tension. Coaches don't like losing control. Veterans don't always like seeing a rookie take charge. But Clark's game left no room for compromise. Either you build around her or you get left behind. Her power wasn't given. It was seized. And Sophie Cunningham's revelation proved that this wasn't a season of smooth adjustments. It was a silent revolution, led by a 22-year-old who refused to dim her light to fit someone else's system. The cost of that defiance? A locker room divided, a coach under pressure, and a superstar whose fight for freedom became the story of Indiana's entire season. If the Indiana Fever's season had a breaking point, a moment when whispers turned into wildfire, it happened in Atlanta. What fans saw that night looked like a simple halftime argument. What they didn't realize was that it was the visible eruption of months of buried frustration between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White. Sophie Cunningham's comments now make that moment crystal clear. This wasn't about one bad play or a missed assignment. It was a philosophical showdown, broadcast live for anyone paying attention. Witnesses described it as a heated exchange, not the kind you can just laugh off. Clark and White reportedly went back and forth about the offense itself. Clark was frustrated, not at teammates, not at execution, but at the system. She was tired of being forced off the ball, tired of watching her natural rhythm suffocate inside structured sets that didn't fit her strengths. It wasn't disrespect, it was desperation. She wanted the game back in her hands, where it belonged. And here's the twist. In the second half, she got it. White made major changes. Key veterans like Natasha Howard and Kelsey Mitchell were benched, and the new lineup centered around Clark's up-tempo tempo, featuring Ari McDonald, Lexi Hull, Sophie Cunningham, and Aaliyah Boston. What happened next told the entire story. The Fever roared back from a halftime deficit, playing their fastest, freest basketball of the season. Suddenly, the offense clicked. The spacing opened up, the tempo surged, and Clark looked alive again. That second half wasn't just a comeback. It was proof. Proof that when Caitlin Clark runs the show, the Indiana Fever look like a completely different team. And fans saw it with their own eyes. The same coach who wanted control was forced to surrender it, at least for one night, just to stop the bleeding. From that moment on, no one could pretend anymore. The tension was out in the open. The power struggle between coach and superstar wasn't rumor. It was reality. The Atlanta game became the defining snapshot of a team torn between two visions, and Clark's halftime firestorm wasn't unprofessional. It was inevitable. When a generational player is handcuffed by a system that doesn't fit, something's going to break. And in Atlanta, it finally did. For most of the season, Caitlin Clark tried to play the part. The humble rookie, the good teammate, the respectful student of the game. She smiled through bad losses, gave measured interviews, and tried to maintain grace under chaos. But Sophie Cunningham's words confirmed what millions of fans had already sensed. That smile started cracking long before the cameras noticed. The patience, the politeness, the "I'm just learning" responses, they were a mask, and by mid-season, Clark wasn't wearing it anymore. It started subtly. A longer pause before post-game answers, a few sharper sideline glances, body language that said, "I'm done pretending." But once the disconnect between her vision and Stephanie White's system reached its peak, the mask came off completely. Cunningham hinted that Clark's frustration wasn't random. It was cumulative, built over months of being misunderstood, overcoached, and at times outright ignored. She wasn't lashing out because of immaturity. She was reacting like a professional who knew exactly what was wrong but was trapped in a situation where saying it out loud would make headlines. Clark's version of rebellion wasn't explosive. It was calculated. She started taking control of possessions earlier in the clock, waving off plays that didn't make sense. She'd direct traffic mid-possession, calling her own sets, reading mismatches on the fly. It wasn't defiance for defiance's sake. It was leadership, emerging raw and unpolished under pressure. And that's what made it so powerful. She wasn't trying to embarrass her coach. She was trying to win. But the cameras caught everything. The side-eye moments, the terse bench interactions, the visible exasperation after a missed rotation or a botched defensive call. It didn't take long for social media to pick up on it, fueling debates about whether Clark was too emotional or disrespectful. Sophie's insight reframed that narrative completely. Clark's frustration wasn't ego, it was evidence. Proof that she saw the flaws and she cared too much to stay silent. And ironically, that raw emotion is what started to rally fans behind her even more. They didn't see a diva. They saw a young leader tired of compromise. A player who'd rather be criticized for passion than praised for complacency. When Caitlin Clark's patience snapped, it wasn't the beginning of chaos. It was the beginning of truth. She stopped hiding, and from that point on, there was no going back. Behind the scenes, something was brewing. Not just between Caitlin Clark and Stephanie White, but within the Indiana Fever locker room itself. Sophie Cunningham's inside revelations peeled back the curtain on what fans had long suspected. The team was divided. It wasn't open warfare, but a quiet fracture running right down the middle between the veterans who believed in hierarchy and structure and the younger players who believed in Clark's vision. The veterans, names like Kelsey Mitchell, Erica Wheeler, and Natasha Howard, had spent years grinding through the league's pecking order. They'd earned their stripes under a system-first, player-second philosophy. To them, Clark's arrival wasn't just about hype. It was a challenge to everything they'd built. Suddenly, a rookie was drawing more attention than the entire roster combined, dictating offensive pace and pulling fans who didn't even know the Fever existed 2 years ago. Some veterans saw that as energy. Others saw it as disruption. Then there was the other side, the new blood. Players like Aaliyah Boston, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham herself. They didn't see Clark as a threat. They saw her as momentum. Cunningham made it clear. Clark inspired the younger players to break free from predictability. Her energy, her speed, her aggression, it was contagious. They played differently when she had the ball. The tempo changed. The belief changed. But that duality, inspiration versus disruption, split the locker room into two energies that never fully blended. During post-game interviews, the tension showed subtly, veterans emphasizing team basketball, while Clark's allies talked about freedom, flow, and trust. Those weren't just word choices, they were coded messages. And when Sophie revealed that Clark had to enforce her power, that phrase took on new weight, because enforcing power in a fractured locker room isn't just about basketball, it's about politics. It's about having to prove over and over that your way works, even when people around you quietly hope it doesn't. This division wasn't personal hatred, it was cultural clash. Old WNBA versus new. System versus creativity. Control versus chaos. And Caitlin Clark stood right at the center of it, not because she wanted to divide the team, but because her very existence forced everyone to choose a side. Cling to the past or embrace the future. The scary truth, that kind of divide doesn't just fade. It lingers. It defines eras. And Sophie Cunningham's comments didn't just expose it, they made it impossible to ignore. Every revolution eventually spills into the streets, or in this case, into the comments section. What started as locker room tension soon became a full-blown civil war among Indiana Fever fans. Sophie Cunningham's revelations didn't just reopen that wound. They explained why it existed in the first place. It wasn't just about basketball anymore. It was about loyalty, identity, and how much power one rookie should really have. On one side stood the Caitlin loyalists, millions of new fans drawn to the WNBA because of her. They weren't interested in the old pecking order or traditional coaching philosophies. They wanted excitement, innovation, Caitlin Clark basketball. They saw her as a generational figure unfairly restrained by outdated systems and veterans resistant to change. To them, Clark wasn't just the future of Indiana. She was the future of women's basketball itself. On the other side were the old guard defenders, longtime Fever followers and WNBA purists who believed Clark needed to earn her spot. They saw her assertiveness as arrogance, her confidence as entitlement, and her frustration as immaturity. When Sophie said Clark had to enforce her power, this group interpreted it as proof that she was trying to control too much, too soon. They pointed to Stephanie White's experience, the veterans' leadership, and the supposed chemistry issues as justification for keeping Clark in check. Social media became the battleground. Every missed shot, every coach's decision, every fiery post-game comment was dissected like evidence in a trial. One half of the fan base called for Clark to have full control of the offense. The other half claimed she was ruining team unity. It was no longer just a team struggling to find identity. It was a fan base splitting into factions. And the Fever's front office? Silent. They watched as this divide exploded into public discourse, memes, debates, even heated sports talk show segments. What Cunningham's comments did was confirm that the divide wasn't imagined. The frustration people felt watching Clark's game being limited, that was real. The tension between rookies and veterans, also real. What made it all worse was that Caitlyn's greatness made neutrality impossible. You either believed in her rise, or you believed she was overrated. You either saw a young woman breaking boundaries, or you saw a star stepping on toes. There was no middle ground. And by the time Sophie spoke out, the fan base had already chosen sides. Team Clark or Team Status Quo. The Fever weren't just fighting for wins anymore. They were fighting for direction. And that fight didn't just belong to the locker room. It belonged to every person watching from the outside, arguing about whether the league was ready for what Caitlin Clark represented. When Sophie Cunningham spoke, she didn't just drop insider gossip. She ignited a cultural moment. Her words peeled back the curtain on one of the WNBA's most complex power shifts ever. The battle between old systems and a new superstar's rise. And make no mistake, what she revealed isn't just about the Indiana Fever anymore. It's about how the entire league evolves from this point forward. Cunningham's confession that Caitlin Clark had to enforce her power was more than an anecdote. It was a wake-up call. It told every coach, every GM, and every veteran that the WNBA's new generation doesn't fit neatly into traditional molds. This isn't a league built on quiet deference anymore. It's a league where the players are the product, the brand, and the cultural driving force. And whether people like it or not, Caitlin Clark sits squarely at the center of that revolution. For Indiana, Sophie's revelations could mark the beginning of massive change. The pressure on Stephanie White, already mounting after visible tensions and inconsistent rotations, just skyrocketed. You can't have one of the most influential rookies in sports feeling trapped inside your system and expect the front office to stay silent forever. The Fever brass now face a defining choice. Evolve the system around Clark, or risk losing the momentum she single-handedly created. And beyond Indiana, other franchises are watching closely. The league is entering an era where players like Clark, Angel Reese, and Juju Watkins don't just play the game, they move markets. They bring fans, cameras, and sponsorships. That kind of influence shifts the balance of power away from coaches and toward players, just like the NBA experienced in the era of LeBron and Steph. The WNBA is standing on that same precipice right now. Sophie Cunningham may not have realized it, but her honesty just drew a line in the sand. Because now the conversation isn't just, is Caitlin Clark too controlling? It's, is the WNBA ready to hand control to its stars? It's a question that cuts deep into the sport's DNA. If the Fever embraced Clark's leadership, they could transform from an awkward, inconsistent team into the most electrifying offense in the league. If they resist, they'll stay trapped in mediocrity, haunted by the ghost of what could have been. Either way, Sophie's revelation ensured one thing: there's no going back. This isn't just Caitlin Clark's story anymore. It's the WNBA's turning point, a defining chapter where the next era begins, not with a championship or a buzzer beater, but with one simple truth whispered through the locker room: you can't cage the future.